Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my immediate left, we have Miss Alice Ryan.
Hello.
And thanks for being part of Asaph Cafe.
I'm looking forward to it.
And we have affectionately our aging rocker, Emmett.
Yep.
He's our aging rocker, and it's a perfect title for this year. So let me start off with the traditional Burt Bacharach's This Guy's in Love with You, and then we can start our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the premise of this show, all you do is just talk to me as I play the piano. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
No script, just impromptu, just whatever you want to talk about. And I'm going to ask you some few questions for the sake of the audience too, so they can know about you too. But again, thanks for being part of the show. You know this song? Have you ever heard it?
I'm thinking. Maybe.
I'll keep playing for a little bit, see if you recognize it. Don't recognize it yet?
No.
I'll do it again. The second verse. Don't tell her, Emma, see if she knows it.
Well, that sounds like chopsticks.
Still don't recognize it, huh? Well, this made me go before your time.
I do
okay?
recognize it. It sounds like it's the beginning to a TV show.
Well, they might have
Just to
used it in
watch.
a television show.
I'm not sure.
I'll just keep playing and see if you recognize it. I know Emmett wants to tell so bad.
That's okay. I'm gonna let you because even if I did
This
recognize
guy's in love
with you.
It's an easy listening song.
Yeah.
I love easy listening. That's like
Yeah.
I do it to clean. Anytime I'm cleaning, I'm put on the easy listening stations on cable, and I love that.
Now here's the conclusion. You may recognize it. Still, you recognize the part?
Nope. But I don't listen to easy listening because it puts me to sleep.
I love it.
Okay,
actually.
yeah, we'll
Not
talk
in a
about it.
negative way. I fall
I know what you
asleep.
mean.
Yeah.
And here's the conclusion. Anyway, that's called This Guy's in Love with You is the name of the song.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was written by a composer named Burt Bacharach.
Now that name I know.
Okay, you know him, yeah. He was a predominant composer in the 60s. He wrote for like people like Dionne Warwick. What is that? B.J. Thomas, Raindrops Is Falling on My Head.
I love that song.
Yeah, that was all Burt
Yeah, it's
Bacharach's
all right, yeah.
compositions. They were just delightful little light songs. Like it'd be something like,
Done.
you know, The Way to San Jose.
Yeah, I love that song. Oh, it's one of my favorites. Dun 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 dun. I just love that. Makes me almost want to do the dishes or something. Normally, I don't like doing the dishes. The spending drive. Yeah, that's
You
been
know
on
the
easy
song?
listening station so much.
That one is familiar.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, that one I recognize.
Then, do you like the Lawrence Welk show? I love it. Asaph and I love Lawrence Welk.
I don't know. What is it?
The Lawrence Welk television program.
I'm gonna stop right there. Well, you have to remember this. She's a young woman, so
I
she.
also fall asleep easily, so I don't watch too much TV.
Well, here let's give you a little history here. As I mentioned, Burt Bacharach is the composer to a lot of those songs in the early '60s, which goes way before your time. Like, do you know The Way to San Jose? And a lot of the artists of that time did his songs, and then as the next generations come up, they started doing his music too. So that's probably why you might recognize that song. Do you know The Way to San Jose? And Emmett, I don't know what year you were born, but
1967.
okay, so when you came around, music was starting to change somewhat.
Yes.
And then by the time you came around,
I came around just before the 80s, so
yeah.
78.
So you would probably know the artists like say David Bowie, right? Because people like Neil Diamond, I think, was before your time.
I do
too.
know Neil Diamond, though.
I love
My
Neil
husband
Diamond.
likes old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, we're talking generations and so on. So you came up in a Bowie era. You probably missed the Boy George, Cyndi Lauper era because you were probably pretty young when they came onto the scene.
Well, there's one catch with me. I don't know the artists that I do love.
Okay.
I don't know them necessarily very well anyway. I'm very much a soundtrack person.
Soundtrack, you mean for films?
Yeah, like Lion King, Star
Okay,
Wars.
let's see. let me tell you the history of that song.
The beat sounds a little off.
Wow, this classical version.
I've never heard the classical version.
Isn't this The Lion Sleeps Tonight?
Yeah.
Never cared for that song.
Yeah,
Nope,
I sang it in high school.
All right, here you go. You want to sing a couple of words?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
I was an alto, so our words were like, hey, hey, a wimboe.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you the history of that song. I did a documentary recently,
Really?
a short
On that
little
one?
documentary, on this song, on a program called Wake Up Missoula. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
Scott Ramf and Noah McAvoy, they do it. It's like watching K-Pax News, and then they have a segment called Musical Notes, and I did a little short bio on the history of that song. There was an African-American fella named Solomon Linda back in the 1930s from the African continent, and he wrote like this rough, raw version of that song, and he sold that song for $2 at that time, sold the rights. And as that song began to evolve, eventually by the time it got to the U.S., you had people like Pete Seeger. I don't know if you would know him or not.
I recognize the name, but doesn't mean I know.
And then there was a group called the Tokens that did their version, and it evolved to the version we know today. You know, the
Yeah, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
yeah, because the original version by Solomon Linda was kind of a primitive version of that.
I probably would have.
They had
this
like
version.
a weema
That's-
kind of, you know, it
I've
was
heard that
really
version.
primitive. And they've got it posted on YouTube, something like, instead of what we know. It was more like an African native kind of version
And that's actually
to it.
the version that I like.
Yeah, well,
I've heard
I
that
used
version.
that version on this little documentary thing I did, and by the time Disney got a hold of it, I don't think that these people took it on purpose when it got to the U.S. I don't think they intentionally said, "Oh, we're going to steal this." It's just that by the time Disney started using it, the descendants of Solomon Linda filed a lawsuit against the Disney organization at
Oh, so
that
there was
time.
more than one that did for that movie.
Well, yeah, but and so they finally settled that case, and I'm happy that Solomon Linda's descendants are now benefiting from that song, even though that song has evolved. Because if you hear the original version, it's really, really, really primitive. I mean, it didn't have all that fancy instrumentation and stuff.
Oh,
It
and
just
that's-
was.
I liked that.
Yeah, it was just. It just sounded like
versions.
something out of a Tarzan film would be the way to describe it. And you should hear it sometime. Well, maybe after the show I'll let you hear it. It's just very basic, very primitive. So that song has evolved since like the 1930s, and I'm glad that the descendants of Solomon Linda get to finally benefit.
Yeah.
Disney benefits, his descendants benefit, and all of us get to benefit, and we get to listen to it now. So it's a cool song. You sure don't want to sing?
If you don't like easy listening, then do you like punk rock or heavy metal? I do. I love
Oh
punk rock and
God,
heavy.
I'm weird. So I'm very eclectic. I like a lot of things. I love 80s. Almost all things that you
Give me an
find as
idea of the 80s. Who are some of your favorite artists of the 80s? To give me an
Artists.
idea. Well, or singers, or
Okay,
whatever. Or
okay.
music. Music, for example. What kind of music do you still like from that era?
I'm thinking. I don't know.
Okay, I'll
I
just.
mean, I know, but I don't know. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
Okay, Smashing Pumpkins.
Ugh.
You into
See, I
them?
don't know what they sing.
Okay, how about
I
the?
might like them, but I don't know what they sing. I
Alright,
like
well-
Whip It. I remember the name of that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
1979.
Whip
That
It,
was a
yeah.
good one,
It
yeah.
was something
Yeah.
like this.
That was the Cars.
That was a good one.
It was like, yeah, I remember the Whip It song.
Okay.
Okay, that gives me an idea of where you're heading with your music there.
But then I also like Celtic rock.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just got to see a band this past week, actually, the first concert I've been to in a long time, called The Cog is Dead.
Okay.
And what
Was
they
that here
did-
in Missoula?
It was here in Missoula. It was awesome. Actually asked the band out to dinner after. It was great.
And did they accept your offer?
Yes, they came with us. We went over to the Pita Pit.
Excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
we all did. It was awesome.
Do you mean Celtic punk rock like the Dropkick Murphys?
Oh, I love Dropkick
I
Murphys.
love the Dropkick
Okay,
Murphys.
now that gives
I
me an
love Gaelic
idea.
Storm.
Yeah, I haven't heard
Okay.
Gaelic Storm
Oh
yet.
my god, you need to.
Yeah. Were you then at the Dropkick Murphys when they came to town a couple of years ago? They came to town a couple of years ago.
No, Gaelic Storm did too, and I missed that one too.
Right.
I almost never get to go to concerts.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Yeah, it was a great slam dance if you like slam dancing, which I do.
I like anything that's fun, and I get to dress up.
Yeah, thing is, I can no longer slam dance anymore. Physically I can't do it. I just get bruised up and banged up in my old age. You see, I used to be a hardcore punk rocker. If you remember,
I can tell.
I used to be on my show. I used to have the beautiful mohawk and leather jacket and
Oh,
chains.
dude, you're the one with the mohawk.
Yes.
They talked
Yeah,
about your show when I was in college.
Yep.
yeah. This is
They've
him.
set
Yeah.
me down in front of your show on several occasions.
I was the one
Yeah,
with the mohawk.
this is
Okay.
him. Yeah.
I just didn't have the glasses either, but yeah,
Okay.
I'm the
And
one.
this
That's
is, and
probably
I'll
why I
tell you,
recognize
when
you.
he retired from his show, I was just starting mine, and I wanted to keep Emmett in front of the camera and keep that character,
Okay.
the image that he created, even though we don't do the hardcore stuff
politics.
like he did.
Yeah.
And we're
I
doing this
remember
new
that.
Lawrence Welk show soon, and so I want to use his character on it. So I just think it's perfect. But yeah, this is the guy
Yes,
who
I
we're
have
talking.
seen the Lawrence Welk show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
well,
had to
I'm doing
connect
the
its
new.
names. I
I'm
didn't
doing
know
the
that.
new Lawrence Welk show.
Yes.
That got picked up by PBS,
Yes.
and so having Emmett
Yep.
as part of it's just a perfect character.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, while I'm developing this show, I wanted to keep Emmett in front of the camera, and so that's
Makes
why
sense.
he does me a favor by
I
being
remember
part of the cafe.
Your show was actually like really popular when I was in college.
It was, and exactly it was. Now, the reason I don't do the show, except for a few specials, is because the viewership went down until it was only about 15 people, so I decided to retire the show.
You
But
weren't
you
as
got to
much of a
remember,
shock.
you did that show
Exactly.
for
Used to
20
you.
years. So 20 years ago, the people that were really into your show have gotten 20 years older themselves.
Yes.
You got to keep that in mind.
And
You
they're
got
not
the
as
younger-
rebellious now.
Right.
Exactly.
Potentially.
So
Unless they're mean.
I have seen his show. I've got a clip of Emmett's show when he actually had the hair.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I
And
remember.
it worked at the. I
I
did.
can
I finally
identify
looked at it. I finally
Yeah.
looked
I
at
can
it. You know.
identify it.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking when I was watching, I'm like, man, I know that guy. You know.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
even though I didn't
I heard a lot
know
about
you,
it, and I finally had friends sit me down and go, no, watch, you gotta
yeah,
see this.
got to see it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
even though I didn't know you physically then, when I looked at your early work, it's good. It's good work.
Yeah, thanks.
It's really good work.
Yeah, I'm for this gig. Asaph asked me to dress, punk rocker, even though I've retired from the movement. The reason
Yeah.
I actually retired, I still have the punk rock beliefs that I had on my show, punk rock beliefs, and still love the music. But after that gig with the Dropkick Murphys, where I was so exhausted doing the slam dancing, and I've got arthritis on my feet now. I'm 48, because I started my show in the 20s and I went punk with a mohawk in my 20s. Physically, I can't do it anymore. Physically, I can't slam dance anymore. Physically,
Well, you got to remember the audience you had probably physically can't do stuff
Yes.
anymor either. So
Slam dancing itself isn't nearly as popular as it used to be.
I know, and I love it. And it was a great mosh pit at the Dropkick Murphys, when they were belting out, "The boys are back and they're looking for trouble." Wow, it was great. I mean,
Oh my God.
big burly football players smashing it. I just loved it, but physically I can't do it. So I prayed and asked, Lord, should I quit the punk rock movement? I'm going to keep the values, but I can't do this anymore. And he kind of said, Emmett, what do you want? It's up to you. So I said, Lord, if it's all the same, I think I should retire because I think I'd be getting in the way more than helping the young kids. I mean, I physically can't keep up anymore. So that's why now I quote-unquote dress kind of quote-unquote normal a lot of the time. Ordinary t-shirt, ordinary hair. I think I've earned my rights. People know I hate society, so it's not like I'm selling out to the system and the establishment and the man. I'm not selling out to conformo
No,
society.
I know exactly
yeah.
where you're coming from, but see, I can use that character anyway.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to work on the new Lawrence Welk show. So
I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Be
do
able to
too.
hold on to that part of who you are.
Exactly.
But
And can you
dust
imagine-
it off, bring it out every now and then.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this character when we do this new Lawrence Welk show? We have a new set, and he comes out in the character like what he has here, and he's doing something with children or
Yeah.
something. I just think that's going to work.
Yeah, reading like the Bible, the Christmas narrative to
The
children.
Christmas story or
time.
something. Yeah, as this character. And
Yeah.
I just
I
think
think it'd
it's
be awesome.
Yeah, it would
I
be.
do. I think it's going to
My
work.
son would like you.
Yeah.
And
but
see,
he'd gravitate right toward you. I mean,
yeah, because see,
he
and
does
that's what I'm looking for, because we want to take this character and give it a wholesome,
Yeah, exactly.
clean image to it. It's like Fonzie, well, that's a generic.
Yeah,
you
I
watch
hated
Happy Days.
I
Well, I
hated
know,
it.
but
Happy Days.
I never really watched much of it. It was on.
Well,
it was
you
on
didn't
when I
miss
was a
anything.
kid. I just never got into it.
well,
Honestly.
that goes way before your time.
Yeah.
That
But
show.
I thought.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
talking
it
about.
was playing regularly when I was
Well,
a
but
kid.
it was in
and it still is
reruns
on.
because.
It's not as old as Doctor Who.
Well, no, maybe not.
And I
but-
grew up with Doctor Who.
I love
Okay.
Doctor Who, the old Doctor Who. I love the old Doctor Who.
I grew up with Doctor Who.
Okay.
Same here, same here.
Well, speaking of Doctor Who, let's get into some science fiction here. Yeah, he just loves it.
But it's fun.
I love science fiction. It's fun. Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I was telling Emmett on another show when I was a little boy. They had a bunch of science fiction shows like the original Lost in Space.
I loved the original Lost in Space.
With Mark
Yeah.
Goddard
Yes.
and June Lockhart.
The newer
and then
movie
they
though
had-
sucked.
it did.
Yeah,
it
I
just.
know.
It was the first date for me and my husband.
Uh-huh.
And it was after that movie. It was 1:00 in the morning, and out in the parking lot, he came to me, and he's like, he stumbled in his words and then asked me to date him. 2 weeks later, I found out the reason he stumbled in his words is because he was trying to tell himself, no, it's too early to ask her to marry me. We should probably date first. So he was asking me to go out with him.
How long did you
That
guys
was May
date before you
1st.
got? How long did you date before you got married?
We knew each other for a long time, and then we dated officially for, well, we started 1 year in May, and we married not the next June, but the June after, so a little over a year.
Well, while you're talking, I'm gonna play the theme to Lost in Space.
But we were engaged like after 2 weeks.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I know.
You recognize it?
But I don't remember squat of the movie.
Yeah.
I just remember.
Nor do I.
Like,
I thought this
kind of
was.
sucks.
Yeah, it does. It did. Yeah.
I liked the old show.
Yeah, that's
I
the
didn't-
theme. That's
yeah.
the theme.
Yeah, I watched the old show as a kid, but I didn't really care for it. But back then, I was so much into science fiction, I'd watch anything.
Well, we're
going
gonna
to
get into science fiction a little bit, but anyway, you probably know the premise of the original Lost in Space. I'll show where I'll tie in with the movie. The nations were fighting to see which nation would go into space first to Alpha Centauri, because the original storyline, they wanted to go to Alpha Centauri because the Earth was too populated. So they wanted to recolonize by going to Alpha Centauri. And so the nations were fighting to see who would go first. And the United States was the first nation because they had the Jupiter 2.
Now, is this did Lost
That was
in
the
Space come out
original-
before or after the Walk on the Moon?
I don't
This
know.
was probably
My
a
timelines are
little
fuzzy.
bit after.
Okay.
I would say probably a little bit after. But Dr. Smith goes into the ship and he reprograms the robot to destroy that ship 8 hours after it launches off. But what happens is Dr. Smith gets trapped in the Jupiter 2 just when it's about to take off. So he gets trapped in there, and so when the Jupiter 2 takes off, the extra 200 pounds causes the ship to go off course. And that's how the series started. So he has to wake up Major Don West, and he has to fess up why he's there. And that's how the series started. And they never actually made it to Alpha Centauri. They wound up going to different planets and different.
I thought they
episode.
crash landed
I
on
was
one
gonna say, I thought
planet.
They
stayed
did,
on
but it
one,
wasn't
didn't it?
Alpha
Yeah.
Centauri. And
Yeah.
they
Okay.
crashed on that one planet because they had to do the repairs on the Jupiter 2
Yeah.
if they were going to
Yeah,
go
but I don't
to...
recall them ever getting off that planet.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
no, they finally did.
Oh yeah, they did.
They
didn't
did. They
That's
finally
right.
did.
There was another TV show right around the same time, and I've been
Okay.
trying to remember the name of this dang thing, and it was dinosaurs. They were on another
Land of the
planet.
Lost.
Oh
I
dear
think it
God,
was
how
called
did I
Land.
forget that name?
Yeah, when you said dinosaurs.
I love Land
No,
of
it
the
was
Lost.
Land of the Lost.
I love that.
loved
Yeah, it was Land of the
that.
Lost.
I
I
love
loved
that.
it so much.
But see, prior to that, like I was telling Emmett here, we had, well, these shows were by the same creator. We had Lost in Space, we had Time Tunnel, we had
I haven't seen that one.
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Now, Time Tunnel
I saw
was,
that. It didn't interest me.
yeah, well, I think that's more of a guy thing, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Dude, you're talking to a historical tomboy.
Well, I realize that, but what I'm saying is, that the problem with those shows then, they started out serious, like, the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, they went after espionage spies, and, it dealt with that aspect, and then they started changing the writing to appeal to kids, and I think it lost its flavor. That happened with Lost in Space, that happened with Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, I think it even happened with Time Tunnel, and they had some of these other science fiction shows, and then they had, of course, Star Trek, which I think is a classic.
Next
you
Gen
know.
is what did it, though. Next Gen's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do like
I'm a
the
Next
Next
Gen
Generation.
fan.
Let's see
My
if I can
father
figure
was
it-
an original fan.
Yeah,
I grew up with the original, but
I
See.
still prefer the original to Star Trek: The Next Generation, but the Next Generation has grown on me over time.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought, when this is a horrible show, politically correct and boring and yuppified, but it's grown on me.
Okay.
Over age, kind of like aged wine. It's grown on me, and now that I'm older, I can appreciate it more.
Something like that.
looking
yeah, like
at
that.
it from that political rebellion, I could totally see why you'd prefer the original.
Yeah, definitely.
Dear God, was that an inappropriate role model for kids?
Yeah.
You talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation?
No,
Yeah.
the original.
Oh, the original.
Next Gen is excellent for morals and role modeling.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
The
yeah.
original, dude, you're dealing with a pervert.
Talking about Captain Kirk.
Yes, he was a womanizer. Oh my
Well,
God.
hey, it's no
It was
different than James
terrible.
Bond. James
Yeah,
Bond.
James was
Bond was the same way. So you know.
Yeah, but James. Yeah, no, James Bond I didn't care for until the recent ones either.
I love
But
the
you
old James
know,
Bond stuff. you
I
know.
look at it,
I've watched them.
if Captain Kirk can make out with a green woman, then
Yeah.
you shouldn't be prejudiced fear about that. That's just my little
Yeah,
take on
yeah.
it, so anyway, but no, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
He
Captain
wouldn't let
Kirk.
the Green Woman then pilot his ship, though.
Yeah, I know. I
I guess that's where my little bit of women's lib comes out a little bit.
that's okay. Hey, I understand.
I'm
you
looking
know,
at it, right? And the girls, they're there as decoration.
I know.
All of them, they're there as decoration. Even in the original, if you look at the original outfits for Deanna Troi, she was supposed to be a bimbo.
Mm-hmm.
She was designed to be a bimbo, just like the girls on the original.
Yeah.
But very, very quickly, it caught on that no, they want a strong female character,
Yeah.
which is actually where the Star Wars movies
Oh, yeah,
succeeded
they were.
right now. That's the biggest success,
Yeah, yeah.
in my opinion, about the new Star Wars. Is it's the first time we see an individual, strong female characters that don't need the males to be those strong female characters.
Wait, you're not talking about the new one,
I'm
The Force
talking about the new
Awakens?
one.
The Force Awakens. You liked that
Yes,
movie?
I loved it.
Well, this is.
I am so excited about what it's bringing us and where it's bringing us to.
Well, I can understand from your point of view too, because you're approaching it from a female point of view, aren't you? And you're looking at it
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry,
more from a
Princess Leia's
science fiction
Yes,
point of view.
yes.
So I understand both sides. But see, that's the cool thing, because when they make movies like that, everybody's going to see it different.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's going to
Yeah.
react
I'll
different.
admit-
And that's a fun thing.
The Force Awakens was a heck of a lot better than The Phantom Menace with Jar Jar Binks. I will
Oh,
give it
good
that. There was
God.
no Jar I hated Jar Jar Binks, and I
1,
hated
2,
the Phantom.
and 3 need to be burned.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
Oh,
I think we pressed
Yeah.
the nerve on that one.
Yeah, they were so bad.
they were just God. So Princess Leia. Okay, for a female character, she's kind of weak. She's not completely weak, but you couldn't see a show with just her. She'd be boring.
Yeah.
Right? She's not that interesting. She's like this princess, right? That
Yeah.
has just found herself in
I'm gonna play the
circumstance
theme
after
song.
circumstance. But then you go back to 1, 2, and 3, and
Yes.
oh dear God, it's all about dressing the girl up.
Yeah. You didn't like 1, 2, and 3. I love Star Wars 1, 2, and 3. I loved those. I love you.
That's
try
where
it
Jar Jar
again.
Binks is.
No.
No. 1, 2, and 3.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. You're not talking about 4, 5, 6.
No,
Okay,
4,
yeah.
5, and 6 are legend.
Yeah, they were fantastic, but 1, 2, and 3, for some reason I thought the first ones in the 70s, 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, the ones with Jar Jar Binks, that character was so bad. I kind of liked the Revenge of the Sith a little better. At least that was watchable. I liked it, but it was still weak.
I didn't like any of them.
Yeah.
Plot-wise,
Yeah.
everything-wise, it didn't have the right feel. It didn't
Well,
have
it
the right
did. It was like George Lucas was on writer's block, and he wanted to make this anyway, so he made himself write this, and it made it in a writing crap.
Or like he caved in areas where maybe he shouldn't have.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
Political correctness again is whatever.
Maybe, yeah.
But as far as The Force Awakens, I saw it with my mother when we went over for Christmas vacation. And I went over to Oregon for Christmas, and I felt that it was just recycled from the old Star Wars movies. They had the Death
And
Star,
Alice,
and
you
they
probably
had-
see that from a different point of view, don't you?
I do. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's actually some that the recycled bit, they actually
And the
did
rebellion
it to
again
a
and the
comedian. They did it to a comedic point of view. The whole point
I see.
of as much repetition, because there was a ton, and Han
That's the
Solo
problem.
actually made fun of the level of repetition. It's like, come on, is the Death Star all over again? It's just bigger.
Yeah, I mean, that drove
he
me
said
crazy. That
in
drove
the
me
movie.
insane, you know? The
But
repetition.
I think the reason why, and I think there's actually a point to it, I think it's to gain and grab the new generation, to situate them the way that we already have been, and then to create these new characters and this background that's going to push us into something very, very new. So our next ones, I'm not expecting the same repetition.
I hope you're right.
I think they did it, and I think they pushed it so that it would hopefully come off as almost comical, because the level of repetition is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I want to go back and rewatch one of them, because I think that what the commanders say in the ships, you know, orange 4, red 4, go here. I think it's like the same number. I think it's the same. Same
I was about tearing out my hair.
Same teams. I think they were calling the same teams to go that they did in the original version. But to this day, Return of the Jedi is and probably will always be my favorite.
See, that's what I said in the
I
other
love that
show.
song, by the way.
Oh, good. I know you know that one. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Like I said in the other show, the Return of the Jedi is probably the best one.
Always.
The best of all.
I have the soundtrack, like I said, I have the soundtrack.
Now, I didn't see. I admit, I've not seen all the Star Wars films, but I
Dude,
did.
you have some homework.
Well, no, I realize that, but I was telling.
He has homework.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with it though. I know enough about it. I was telling Emmett that I worked at the Art and Theater in California when the Return of the Jedi was popular, and they had 6 theaters there, and so they were shoving everybody into these 6 theaters to see the Return of the Jedi at the time. So
Wow.
you get that kind of memorized after a while, because I was the doorman, so I had to let all the people in to see it, and you can hear the music of each theater, and they all started at different times, but it was quite an experience.
Yeah. When I was born, okay, Return of the Jedi either was just coming out or had just come out.
Oh, was it
Right.
1978 you were
I was
born?
born 1978.
Okay, it was
it
in
was,
1983, so not even Empire Strikes Back was out yet. It was still Star Wars era. This Star
Well,
Wars.
how did you get familiar with
Oh dear
Return
God,
of
I
the
grew
Jedi?
up on all of this.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. That would make sense.
I grew
yeah.
up on it. Period.
Yeah.
My
Same
father
here.
raised me right.
Yeah.
But the thing is so when they re-released them into the theaters,
Yeah.
of course, I was there opening night for every one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is that was really shocking, and my most favorite thing about number 1, not number 4, but number 1, was the opening night of number 1. People across the country
We're
are
talking
gearing-
about the Phantom Menace?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now, the people across the country are getting ready, right?
Yes.
To go see Star Wars. They're going to that opening showing, and
Yeah.
me and Dan were ready to wait in line for hours and hours and
Yep.
hours. Well, we went out and scouted out the different places the day before, and we found what place we wanted to go to. Well, we go that night, and we're like, wait a minute, parking lot's empty. What the heck's going on? So we go in, we're like, you guys, I know that you guys had your showing tonight, right? I'm not mistaken. They're like, no, you're absolutely right. The newspaper printed it wrong. Me and my husband ended up having a private showing, the first showing, midnight on opening night.
Yeah.
We had the theater to ourselves.
Really?
It was
Oh.
phenomenal. I like Jar Jar Binks, but
Yeah.
I like Jar Jar Binks separate from the concept of Star Wars.
I hated Jar Jar Binks. I hated
know,
Jar Jar.
I know. He
Jar
was
Jar
meant to
Binks.
be annoying, and boy was he.
He was just horrible. And I think he was racist. I think it was a racist character, making fun of black people, African Americans. I thought it was very racist. It was
Boy, I didn't see that at all.
Yeah,
the way he talked and, you know, the words he used. It was just, to me, racist to the core. I
I'm
just
gonna go
thought.
back and watch it. I did not pick up any of
Yeah.
that. Because I usually pick up racism.
Well, to
because
me, it was
confuses me.
racist. Anyway.
But see, that's the interesting thing about these movies is two people can watch the same film and they're going to see it different.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting. You mentioned that in the other show that you saw it as racist. I didn't see it that way, but
Did you see Jar Jar Binks, the movies? With
I know of it, but I've
if you
got
see
to.
it, you're going to be very upset.
Watch it and see what you think.
Yeah.
See if,
The
see if
Phantom
it comes
Menace.
off that way at all to you. Because
Well,
I'm really
nothing.
kind of blown away by this.
Nothing in from all the Star Wars films I've seen. I didn't.
No,
pick
it would be
up
specifically the Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah,
You'd want to watch
specifically
number 1.
Jar Jar Binks.
You'd want to watch number 1.
Specifically-
Well, I remember
Phantom
watching the
Menace.
first Star Wars and the second and the third.
Those are you talking the originals?
The
right?
originals, yeah.
The originals are actually 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Oh, I
So,
see. Okay,
George
so I had to go. I'd have
Lucas
to.
did prequels 1, 2, and 3
Yeah,
to
I
set
was
up the Empire.
familiar
Well, see,
with
now what I
that.
was told, and if you know otherwise, correct me because I need corrected if I don't have this right. But what I was told was that when he originally wrote the manuscript.
Yes.
It was too long.
Yeah.
So then he cut it into 3.
Yes.
But then he wanted to fill out the characters of those 3,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
each 3 grew, and he had to cut them into 3 again. So
Yeah.
there ended up being 9.
Yes.
And his favorite ones were the 3 in the center.
Exactly.
So he
exactly.
took those and produced them, never figuring that
Yes.
he would get any further.
Yeah.
I
exactly.
had heard.
that-
I had heard that. So
Not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
that, but when he proposed the film, the company, I can't remember who the heck let him use the theater, but like a theater like this is.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He went around and proposed it. Nobody wanted to touch it.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, this is garbage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, here, you go ahead, you can use the facility. Do not attach our name to this. We don't want to have anything to do with it. Keep all your rights. Nothing. Oh boy, were they stupid.
Yeah.
But and they're probably someone probably got fired years
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
going,
oh, yeah, yeah,
no, that's it,
probably.
you're gone.
But
That was a
anyway,
mistake.
of all the science fiction shows of modern times, do you have a personal favorite? What would be your favorite?
The newest Star Wars.
The new Star. And what about you, Emmett? What would be?
I think my favorite. It's a tie between the first Star Wars and the Return of the Jedi. It's a tie. I
Yeah.
loved Empire Strikes Back, but it was the Star Wars. At least the first 3 movies would be my favorite. It's hard
And
to pick.
see,
It's like
since
a,
I'm
What
older.
about newer? Because I was thinking he was asking newer ones.
newer ones.
Yeah, newer than the original Star Wars.
I'm trying to think. I don't like a lot of the new stuff. I just don't like a lot of it's the older stuff I really like, and there's probably a newer one that I really liked, and I just can't remember right now. Oh boy, let's see. I'm trying to think. It's mostly the old stuff I like. The new politically correct stuff just drives me insane. Like even on I'm gonna have to think about that one. A newer one. Oh yes, there is a newer one. It was a science fiction comedy. I thought it was adorable, called Galaxy Quest.
Oh my God, I
remember
love
it.
Galaxy Quest.
I
God, I love
loved Galaxy
Yes.
Quest. That was the funniest show.
Yes.
And I wish there had been a TV show like that. That would have been awesome.
Well,
I
it
would have
was.
been
It was
a
called
Quest
Star Trek.
Yeah, it
Galaxy
was.
Quest is based on the
Yeah, I know,
concept
I
of Star
know,
Trek
I
and
know.
Trekkies.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a Trekkie, Alice?
I am not able to retain information well enough to consider myself a good Trekkie.
Okay, let me ask you: did you see
I
any of the
love-
Star Trek films? I'm not talking about the television
I
series.
can't tell you the differences though. And the television series is really what I like the most.
Yeah. Well, it just takes a
The
little getting
films,
used to.
I've watched a lot of the films. I can't tell you the names.
Well,
because I suck
let
at
me give
names.
you a quick flyover because Em and I were talking about that since we're talking science fiction. Number 1 basically was about a Voyager probe, and its mission was to collect information. So they shot the Voyager probe about 300 years in the past. And the words Voyager got smeared as it was in its travels in space. That's how it became Voyager. Some of the letters, Voyager, Voyager. You know, some of the letters got smeared, so the machine called itself Voyager. And as it was going through space, it was collecting so much information it became a living machine. That's the premise of number 1. So this living machine decides it wants to go back to the Earth and find its
I've
creator.
watched the ones based on the original. I've watched.
I'm talking about
like,
the Star Trek the
movies
motion
based on
picture. It's based on the television series, but I mean, it did have a storyline, like I was telling Emma. Emma and I were talking about that, and so that was its mission was to take the information and transmit it back to Earth, but there was nobody on Earth that could pick up the signal when Voyager goes to Earth. So Captain Kirk has to figure out the signal and figure out why that machine is there. And in the
Now-
meantime, it was wiping out folks. Because the bad guys get ticked off, and they're always wiping folks out till they get what they want. So that's what Voyager was doing. And then they find out that Voyager is a child, so they treat the thing like a child. And then finally, they get the information to Voyager, and Voyager wants to join with its creator through a union. I don't want to say sexual union, but
Yeah, well, it was just-
that was
yeah.
kind of the premise of it.
Well, original, I would totally.
I'm talking about, yeah,
totally was
and
that.
so Voyager connects with its creator through the
Does that mean
union,
pedophilia?
and a new life form evolves. So that's kind of that. Now, number 2, the Wrath of Khan.
That one I've seen.
Yeah, now
love
in
that.
the television series, as punishment for trying to destroy the Enterprise, Khan, his wife, and his companions were exiled on City Alpha 5. So in the number 2 Star Trek film, they were supposed to go to City Alpha 6, and they go to City Alpha 5 by mistake. Khan's down there, so he's ticked off anyway. He hijacks that ship and goes after Captain Kirk a second time. That's basically what number 2 is about.
I have the soundtrack to that.
I remember that one.
And so Spock ends up getting killed at the end to save the day.
Yeah.
And so Kirk's son created the Genesis device. Anything dead that gets exposed to the Genesis rays gets rejuvenated. So when they had Spock's funeral, they shot his remains out on the Genesis planet, which causes remains to rejuvenate. And his spirit was transferred into Dr. McCoy, because the Vulcans have a thing. Just if they know they're going to die, they transfer themselves through the touch of the head, you know, the Vulcan thing. So they had to get McCoy and Spock's remains to Vulcan to put him back together again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and that's what they did in number 3. You know, they they hijack the Enterprise. It's all old and out of shape, and they go to Vulcan. They fix everything.
Yeah.
In number 4, the whales, the humpback whales. And I think they had a message on that.
Yep.
The whales were in communication with this probe that the humans didn't know about from a galaxy far away. And so when the communication was broke off with the whale planet, they sent the probe in the form of a whale to go to the Earth to find out why the communications were broken.
That just totally connects with
Yeah.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And so then, when the it's the same plot line. When the probe comes, they're destroying the planet looking for what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So since Kirk was on Vulcan, he wasn't exposed to all that. So the crew of the Enterprise have to go back in time, bring 2 humpback whales into the future to repopulate the species and tell that thing to go do it itself, like Dr. McCoy said in the movie. So they bring the whales into the future. Communication's done. That's the end of it. The probe goes back.
See, my favorite Star Trek movie...
That is Star Trek. That was Star Trek number 4.
My favorite Star Trek movie is when the Enterprise with Picard go back in time to First Contact.
I'm getting to that.
Oh, I did not like that.
Well, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
So number 5 was basically their search for God, and they were disappointed because you can't find God. So basically, Spock has a half-brother. So instead of the half-brother embracing the Vulcan ways, he embraces the human ways. He hijacks Enterprise. You know, all the bad guys always hijack the Enterprise. Anyway, he hijacks Enterprise. They go on their search for God.
Kirk lost the Enterprise a lot, didn't
Yeah,
he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same plot. So anyway, Spock's half-brother takes control of the Enterprise. They go looking for God, and they go on this planet. And there's an alien that had been trapped on this planet for eons. So he pretends to be God because this creature knows a lot. So he pretends he's God, right? Captain Kirk gets suspicious because the alien didn't know what a starship was, and God is supposed to know everything. So that kind of triggered off the suspicion, and then the alien starts zapping folks. Hey, God doesn't go around zapping people, you know, and so they find out it's just an alien that's trying to get on the Enterprise and get off that planet that he was exiled on. So that's kind of a dud. But then in number 6, and this is my personal favorite, the president of the Klingon command decided he wanted a peace treaty for real. And that didn't sit well with all the people in the Klingon Empire, the other higher powers to be. And then there were admirals on the Starfleet that didn't sit well with. They didn't want a peace treaty either. So what they did is the good and the bad guys team up. But they weren't teaming up because they were friends. They had ulterior motives, even though they teamed up to try to stop this peace treaty. So they do it by assassinating their chancellor, the Klingon command, which triggers the fight all over again. So, you know, Kirk has to figure all that out. And they frame Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy to get them out of the way so they can start this war and end that peace treaty. And, of course, you know, Kirk saves the day like he always does. Now, get to your favorite. After 6, they had Zefram Cochrane. He was the creator of the warp drive system. This is number 7.
Yeah.
The Borg, and see what happens is the Borg go back in past. They always go back in past.
Of course.
And they want to try to alter the future.
Yeah.
So they go in the past and they go after Cochrane in the past. So that means that Captain Picard and all those guys have to go back in the past, and
they find out Cochrane is not the noble hero they expected him to be. He's
So they get a little
trying to make
disappointed. And then the next film after that is that guy that was in the Nexus. This is Star Trek number 8.
Yeah, the Generations.
Nexus
That was a good one.
Yeah, this is a type of it's a type of heaven seed.
Yeah,
He gets out of the Nexus, so he wants to go back no matter what. He starts killing folks, and he just do anything
to
to go
have to sit
back.
down and watch. I haven't
Now, see how they connected
had a
it.
chance to really watch that one yet.
How
That
they
was a good
connected
one.
at the beginning of number 8, Captain Kirk is retired.
Oh wait, no, this is not Kirk. Is this the one where Picard is kind of losing
Yeah.
it?
Well, they have to connect the generations.
Like he's going through timelines and he's
Yeah,
having
yeah.
trouble?
This is here's how they do it.
Yeah.
First, at the beginning of the film.
Isn't that an episode of Star Trek?
That was a really long episode. Of
Well, yeah. At the
Yeah,
at the
this is a
beginning of the
movie,
film, Captain Kirk.
Goodbye.
Okay, at the beginning of the film, Captain Kirk is a retired admiral. They go for a little run around the block in the new Enterprise, and when they get to the planet Pluto, there's a real emergency call. They're not equipped. Captain Kirk is on that ship, so they decide to go out there anyway, even though they didn't have a crew or anything. And when they go to save the people that are in trouble, part of the new Enterprise was blown up because they didn't have all the crew, and Captain Kirk was in that section that was blown up. So instead of going to heaven like he's supposed to be going to heaven, he ends up in his Nexus place where that other Zoran is his name was trying to get back. So Kirk is in there. They go 80 years into the future. You see Picard and all these guys, and so Zoran's species lives for centuries, just like Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg's character.
Oh god, yeah.
So anyway, this guy's still trying to get back to the Nexus. And what he does is he figures out a way to get to the Nexus, but Picard is not able to stop him. So they have to get help. So that's when they get Captain Kirk out of that Nexus and they bring the two generations together to stop Zoran from getting into that Nexus. So that was basically the plot line of that. So you see like Captain Kirk and, Captain Picard together.
Okay.
And of course, Kirk is the one that actually saves the day because he's the one that can fight. I mean, Captain Picard, he can figure stuff out, but he's a sissy. He can't fight worth a lick.
He's smart.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He uses his brain, whereas Captain Kirk uses his knuckles, And of course, they have a scene in there where Kirk is fighting Zoran. He's beating the snot out of Zoran at first. But Kirk saves the day and he dies in the process. And then, of course, the rest of the Star Trek films focus more on the next generation and stuff like that. Like they have this episode where Data turns bad in one of the films. And so they've got to fix that.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, there's no more Captain Kirk. It's just mostly... It's like watching the next generation, so...
Now, was it Data turned bad or was it his brother?
No, you're... In the series, his brother was bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But in this film... Data turns bad for real because the Borg get control of his mind.
Okay, yep.
And they expose Data to some of the wanting to be human. Data wants to be human. So this Borg lady, she's this creepy, ugly looking thing. You just gotta see.
I have seen it.
It's a great plot line.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Yeah, I agree with you there. But she was like, this is hideous looking thing. You wouldn't want to wake up to that thing in the morning. Ugh, just that. Oh, she just was creepy. So she gives Data skin, so he can get a little bit of an idea what it's like to be human, and that causes Data to struggle because he likes the sexual feeling and he likes being human, but he doesn't want to betray his comrades. And of course, Data learns how to take those human emotions to use it against that Borg lady, and that's how he ends up saving the day.
Yep.
But that's basically it. And then I think there were 2 other films after
I remember
that.
one called Insurrection that I really liked because it had a lot of space wars and lasers.
Yeah, that was just like watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah, I really liked like Insurrection because it had so many lasers. And I don't even remember the plot, but it was really great.
It was just like watching...
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. There's a movie that you must have loved. And I'm trying to remember. First Star Commander?
Okay, well...
Yeah, I did like that.
First Starfighter.
Yeah, that was The Last Starfighter. That was very good.
Was that...
Not the
Were
first,
you
the last.
into that one?
Good, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go back a little bit. Are you familiar with Space 1999? Did you ever see that one?
Not that I know of.
Basically, what it is, you know how you got the moon that orbits the Earth? Well, there was a giant explosion on the moon where the crew of Space 1999 were, and so the moon drifts off in space, and so they're trapped on the moon, and they're trying to figure out how to get the moon back on its...
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
It was very
And
good.
so it was... Well, it's probably considered primitive by the science fiction shows they have today. But that was kind of the basic synopsis of Space 1999. And they had some pretty cool spaceships on there, and they're trying to figure
Yeah.
out. They had to stay on the moon, otherwise they'd die in space.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to figure out how to get the moon back to the Earth's orbit while dealing with bad guys throughout the galaxy and stuff
Well,
like that.
it was more
That's
like- yeah,
basically
very good.
Yeah, it was good.
It was, I think,
And,
1975 through 76, so you
Yeah.
were born in 78. You may have missed it. You weren't born yet. It was before Star Wars.
And
Yeah,
you know
Space
what? I mean,
1999.
It's kind of hit or miss with me. I watched whatever my dad watched.
I see.
Well,
So, my uncle would have it
Yeah.
on VHS. He had like a library, and
And then,
we'd
of course,
rent 'em.
getting back to Godzilla, which fits in there too. When I was a little boy, I told Emmett this story. I lived overseas when I was a little boy, and so my mom would drop me and my brother off to see like Godzilla and Destroy All Monsters and Mothra and Rodan and all these characters. And it was only 25 cents at that time to go to a movie theater
I miss when it was $1.50.
to see a movie.
I know.
So,
movies are so expensive.
And so
nowadays.
there was a television show from Japan called Ultraman, which I mentioned
Oh,
to
yeah.
you. And Ultraman was this big, giant superhero about the size of Godzilla. Basically, he's from a planet called M78 in the 40th galaxy. He's chasing Bimlar throughout space. And how can a big old giant monster like Godzilla fly a spaceship? But anyway, he could. So they're flying, Ultraman's in his spaceship and Bimlar's in his spaceship. They go into the Earth's atmosphere, and Ultraman accidentally kills Hayata. Because, when they go in the Earth's atmosphere, the Science Patrol is naturally going to check it out. So Hayata goes up there, checks it out, and Ultraman accidentally crashes into the Science Patrol ship while going after Bimlar. And Bimlar decides he's going to hang out on the Earth and mess with folks anyway. So what Ultraman does is gives Hayata his life. So they become one. And then Ultraman gives him a beta capsule. Says, you get in trouble, click this beta capsule, you'll become me, and we'll fight. So the Science Patrol couldn't fight this Bimlar creature. He's like Godzilla. He's smashing buildings and what have you. So Hayata turns himself into Ultraman, kicks the snot out of the monster, and that's how the series starts. And so then the monster starts showing up on the Earth, where Ultraman is. And Ultraman, he has this little warning light on his chest, which you saw in that video I showed you. And when he's Ultraman, when he's in his Ultraman state, his powers begin to diminish because he's in Earth's atmosphere. So he has to always fly up into the sun to recharge real quick, and then he comes back and finishes up where he left off. So that's kind of the story of Ultraman there. And that fits in that science fiction world. And if you're a kid, you watch it every day, because at the end of every episode, there'll be another monster the next day and another monster the next day and so on. Same plot line.
Yeah. One of the worst concepts for a kids' television program was a show called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh,
That was one of the worst shows. I saw the pilot episode and I thought, this stinks.
I swear to God, though, they based it off that Ultraman. That clip that he showed us, dude,
Yeah.
it's some of the same moves.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did that.
God.
I don't know. It was just.
It seems very different. It's kind of, but I thought the whole concept of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was so stupid. There were these high school kids, having troubles in high school, regular stuff that kids go through in high school. But then they have a secret mission. They become Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when they're not in school, and they have to fight these stupid witches or these evil alien things that have these stupid robots, and they have this karate.
Yeah, that was kind of lame.
Oh my word!
Yeah, that was pretty lame.
I did
That was
everything I could to get my 12-year-old to not, my now 12-year-old, to not watch it.
Yeah.
Because what I hated about the show, probably more than anything, is unlike the cartoons, these were real kids, real actors.
Yes.
And they'd be doing things that if my kids were doing, they'd be getting pretty seriously hurt.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
I
these
see.
are
You're
deadly-
talking from
these
a
are
parental.
deadly things, right? And the thing is that, so I'm a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle freak.
Oh, yeah.
I love TMNT, right?
Yeah.
And even with a cartoon, we used to go and pretend to be Donatello and Leonardo and all those things. But there's a difference between something that's a cartoon
Oh yeah.
as a kid. There's an obvious difference between reality and not, right? But when it's live
yeah.
action, well, those kids are doing it. Why can't we do it?
Let me
And
ask
there's
you,
at least one kid that died in America.
Changing the
because of
subject
that.
slightly. Did you ever watch a show called The $6 Million Man with Lee Majors?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if that would fit in the science fiction category,
Oh, fuck
but
yeah.
it
Yeah, it
probably
would.
would. Yeah, I used to watch that show every day. And I used to run track when I was in high school, so that was my nickname, was Steve Austin. They used to call me Steve Austin because I'm thin now. I was so thin and I was lightning quick.
Well, the one that I love, and if you know the music to this one, I'll be very happy. But actually, no, I take that back. It's actually not in the movie. I had this one soundtrack stuck in my head for this one movie, and it actually wasn't there. But Flash Gordon.
I loved the movie Flash Gordon from 1980.
Yep.
I have the soundtrack.
Now,
I have the sound.
Holding
Yes.
Out for a Hero is not in it, right?
Holding Out for a Hero?
I had it in my head. I had this memory of when the Owl Men were flying.
Now let's make sure we're
Right?
talking about the right Flash Gordon because there was a
No.
1940s version, you know, of that.
No, this is the 80s.
Yeah, the
Okay.
1980
With
Flash
the-
Gordon.
I've watched the
No, they were
1940 I
both
watched-
Flash Gordon.
No, I
Yes.
watched the 1941. But the 1981 I love. But the
Yes.
thing is that when you're a kid, you have schema. It's like the only educational term I adore. Schema is how you understand things, how you remember
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And they change over time. Well, I don't know how my things got crossed, but I had it in my head. They're holding out for a hero. That song that you see in Footloose
Oh yeah.
was the song playing when it was actually a Flash Gordon song. When the Owl Men were going and flying up to the ship in that like really
Yes.
just classic scene, I had it that was holding out for a hero, and I fell in love with the song "Holding Out for a Hero."
Okay.
Hardcore. I fell in love with the soundtrack for Flash for
I love
Footloose
it. Well, I didn't-
because of that song,
Oh.
Yeah.
right?
Now we're down to our last 5 minutes, guys. But
Sorry.
see, I told you this was going to go real fast. But very quickly, do a chronological thing. You know, in the '60s, they had all these science fiction shows like Time Tunnel, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Lost in Space, and of course some of those remakes were kind of bad. Like I agree with you. And Ultraman, of course, was in that time zone. And then, of course, then the $6 Million Man came out, and then they had what is that? Space 1999, and then they had like Star Wars come out around there, and it's just kind of evolved since then. And of course, the Star Trek movies and Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it was Voyager. Did you like
And the
Voyager?
Doctor Who.
Captain Janeway.
Voyager was okay.
I didn't like
And
that.
of
Janeway
course-
was Pris.
Yeah, and then of course, what's the other one?
Enterprise.
That was a good one.
That was
And then-
interesting.
Yeah, because that was
Oh,
supposed to
my
be
word.
the Enterprise
The thing is that was-
before Captain Kirk, you know,
Yeah.
Captain Archer.
Yeah.
And the top speed of that Enterprise is warp 4. I found
Yeah,
that
I
very
didn't like
interesting.
Enterprise. I didn't like Enterprise.
And then there was the
Well, the
one.
thing that I liked was Scott Bakula from Quantum Leap.
Yeah, Quantum. I used to watch Quantum Leap.
I-
And what
I
was the
am-
other show? The Star Trek one where they were on the base.
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine,
Deep
yes.
And I like that one too,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Next Gen's my favorite.
Yeah, so that's kind of a history of the science fiction stuff. And of course, who knows, 10, 15 years from now, no telling what they're going to come out with.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, Star Trek: The Next Generation is now on 176 BBC America if you have charter cable. You know.
Well,
I have Netflix. I
Oh,
watch
okay.
all of it. I watch everything on
Well,
Netflix.
this might interest you both. I have the pilot in my movie collection
Of what?
Star Trek: The Next Generation. I have
Oh,
the
yeah.
pilot
Cool.
episode,
Wow.
part 1 and part 2. I have the
Cool,
entire
cool.
pilot.
I think I can watch those on Netflix. I think I did.
Well, no,
watch
I have
those.
it in my. I collect VHS movies, so I have 300 movies in my
Yeah.
collection. They're put in drawers at
I
home, so
don't
you don't
want
know
to
I
go
have
look at
them.
your collection.
Yeah, you have to come by sometime. But no, I have the entire. I have all the Star Trek movies in my collection, and I have the entire pilot of Star Trek: The Next Generation. You know, this is when, you know, they didn't have Riker on there in the first
Do you
part
have
of
the
it.
Star Wars?
I don't have Star Wars, but I have the Star Trek.
If we ever go to let go of our Star Wars, would you like it?
Well, I would be interested in the first 3 anyway.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sure, I'd be interested in
The
that.
ones that made sense to come out of
Yeah,
it.
that made sense. And on that note, we're going to have to quit. But yeah, come by sometime. I'll show you that Star Trek: The Next Generation. I've got the entire pilot. It's on a like a. You know what it was is there was a thrift store, and I don't know how they got it. I don't know. Maybe somebody died or something, but they had the entire series on VHS Star Trek: The Next Generation in a box
Yeah.
that they were selling for $25. And the next day when I went to go claim it, somebody had bought it, but I was able to get the pilot. I got the pilot.
Well, I got to
So-
watch. I've watched all of them because thanks to Netflix, I could watch it from.
Well, I can just pop the tape in anytime, and so it's
NDS9
interesting.
and
Yeah.
Voyager.
And as you
Enterprise.
watch it now, you can see how much younger these people are starting to look.
Oh
now,
yeah.
and so on. And on that note, let's make some acknowledgments because we're almost out of time. We're just talking science fiction, and enjoyed having you on as a guest, and thanks for being part of it. And like I
Thanks
said,
for
this goes
inviting me.
by so quickly. And so I am Asaph Cafe. We have Alice Ryan here, and Emmett, our aging rocker. Any
Yep.
last final words you want to say, Alice, before we sign out?
Nope, just come check out MissCon this year. It's going to be
Great.
30 years.
And you've got your shirt on there.
This
WorldCon.
is from the Sasquan, which is the World Science Fair.
Science fiction convention.
Thank you.
Okay.
World
Nice
Science
stuff, yeah.
Fiction Convention, which was in Spokane this past year.
Okay,
Oh.
great. And Emmett, any final words you want to say?
Nope, can't think of anything.
Well, then in
Lord,
that
thanks
case-
again for this show. Oh, man.
Yeah, let me sign out. And anytime you want to be part of the show, if you ever get time in the future, there's plenty of topics to talk about. And you've got your shirt on. I don't know. It should show up on camera, I would think. There's no close-ups, but anyway. So anyway, I am Asaph. Thank you for joining us here on Asaph Cafe. So until our next show, Maranatha. And that's how this show ends. Make yourselves at home. I'll make you a copy.
Cool. Oh. Yeah, MissCon's going on 30 years this year.